There's a quiet kind of pain that not many people talk about, the kind that comes when you look at your life and quietly wonder, am I behind? You scroll through photos of other people's weddings, promotions, houses, babies, and suddenly, your chest tightens. You start measuring your life and missing milestones. You start asking if you've wasted too much time. You think about the choices you made, or didn't make. And somewhere inside, a little voice whispers, maybe I should be somewhere else by now. If that's what's been whispering in your mind lately, I want you to know something. You are not strange for feeling this way. And you are definitely not alone. That weight you've been quietly carrying, so many others are carrying it too. But here's the truth, you are not late. You are not falling behind. You are moving forward in your own way, even if no one can see it yet. And tonight, in this soft space of stillness, I hope these words can remind you of that. You don't have to rush. You don't have to prove anything. You're allowed to rest here for a little while and just be. Let me tell you a quiet story. It won't go viral, and it doesn't have a twist, but it might feel familiar in a way you can't quite explain. There was someone who always felt late. Late to grow up. Late to succeed. Late to fall in love. They saw everyone around them moving fast, graduating, building careers, finding partners, traveling far. They, on the other hand, were still figuring out how to get out of bed without dreading the day. Still wondering what they were meant to do. They thought something was wrong with them. Maybe they had no ambition. Maybe they just weren't built for greatness. That thought sat in the back of their mind like a quiet shame. Until one night, when the world outside had finally quieted down, they asked themselves something different. Not why am I behind, but who says I am? Who created this invisible checklist of things to do before a certain age? Who set this timeline we all seem to be rushing against? They realized, maybe for the first time, that most of these pressures came from voices that weren't their own. Family. Friends. Strangers online. Even well-meaning advice. They weren't living slowly, they were living honestly. On a different schedule. And that schedule didn't make them less valuable. It made them real. They started noticing that the most meaningful parts of life didn't follow a clock. That deep connection, quiet peace, and true joy came not from speed, but from presence. And they began, quietly, to live more in tune with themselves. I tell you this story not because it's extraordinary, but because it's ordinary, and in that, it holds a kind of truth that many of us forget. You are not the only one who feels late. You are not broken. Maybe you are simply arriving at your life in your own time. And maybe that's the only time that ever mattered. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, where's this pressure really coming from? That feeling in your chest, the quiet panic that you're not enough, not ahead, not where you're supposed to be. Most of the time, it doesn't come from your heart, it comes from outside. From the world that never stops moving. From timelines and checklists you never agreed to. From voices that aren't yours, telling you how success should look, how fast you should move, what you should have achieved by now. You scroll through your feed and see people getting married, building careers, having children, launching businesses, traveling to places you've only seen in dreams. And even if you're happy for them, there's a part of you that starts whispering, maybe I'm behind. Maybe I failed. Maybe everyone else is figuring it out, and I'm just standing still. But here's something we rarely talk about. The world is incredibly loud, but deeply unkind to slowness. It rewards speed. It celebrates the highlight reel. It glorifies milestones and metrics, things that are easy to count, easy to post, easy to praise. But it forgets the quiet things. It forgets healing. It forgets learning how to love yourself after years of not knowing how. It forgets starting over in your 30s or your 40s or later, when you finally realize the life you were chasing was never yours to begin with. The pressure comes from a world that rushes, not a soul that reflects. And if you've been feeling like you're falling behind, Maybe it's not because you're broken. Maybe it's because you're finally listening to yourself, instead of everyone else. You see, most of us inherited ideas about time and success that we never questioned. We were handed scripts: graduate by this age, find a job by that age, marry, buy a house, have kids, climb ladders, retire with dignity. And if any of those things didn't happen on schedule, we were made to feel like we were off track. But life isn't a checklist. And people are not machines. The truth is, the most important things take time. Deep relationships, meaningful work, healing from grief, building confidence, rediscovering joy, none of that fits neatly into a calendar year. None of it can be rushed. There's also something dangerous about comparing your path to someone else's when you don't see their full story. You see their peak, not their pain. You see their outcome, not their effort. And worst of all, you compare your real life, with all its uncertainty and chaos and depth, to someone else's curated snapshot. That's not fair to your heart. That's not fair to your journey. So the next time you feel that pressure creeping in, that sense that you're not enough, not fast enough, not successful enough, I want you to pause. Take a breath. And ask yourself, whose voice is that? Whose timeline are you chasing? And more importantly, do you even want the life they're running toward? Because if you don't, if it doesn't feel like yours, then maybe the pressure you feel isn't failure. Maybe it's clarity. Maybe it's your soul saying, I need something different. And that is not falling behind. That is waking up. What if I told you that you are not behind, you're simply on a different clock? That your pace isn't wrong. It's just yours. The world loves standard timelines. It loves to organize people by age, by stage, by checklist. But human lives aren't meant to move in sync. We're not trains scheduled to arrive on the same platform at the same time. Some of us bloom early. Some of us bloom late. And some of us bloom again and again, in quiet ways that no one ever claps for, but that doesn't make them any less beautiful. You are on your own clock, and the only person who needs to understand it is you. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you stop measuring your life by someone else's milestones. When you realize that your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, they're not deadlines. They're seasons. And every season has its own lessons, its own rhythm, its own gifts. Just because something hasn't happened for you yet doesn't mean it never will. And just because it happened later than you planned doesn't mean it was wrong. Sometimes, the right things take time because you needed time. To grow. To learn. To heal. To become the version of yourself who could receive it, hold it, and not lose it again. Think about all the pressure you've felt over the years. To figure it all out. To be ahead. To impress, achieve, succeed. And now ask yourself, how much of that pressure actually led to joy? How much of that urgency made you more grounded, more present, more alive? Chances are, not much. Because rushing rarely leads to depth. And comparison rarely leads to peace. But when you let go of that invisible race, when you stop sprinting towards someone else's finish line, you start noticing something softer, quieter, more true, your own steps. Your own timing. Your own becoming. Your life doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It doesn't need to move at the same pace. It doesn't need to check the same boxes. You are allowed to arrive at your purpose slowly. You are allowed to fall in love when it surprises you. You are allowed to change careers, to start again, to begin from scratch, even if the world tells you it's too late. Your soul does not run on the same clock as society. It runs deeper, slower, more tenderly. And the more you honor that, the more at peace you'll begin to feel. There will be moments when you still feel behind. It's natural. This world is loud. It will keep showing you who's faster, who's further, who's doing it better. But in those moments, try to remember this: your clock is sacred. And it is not broken. It may tick quieter than others. It may pause sometimes. It may even feel like it's standing still. But that doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you're moving with intention, with grace, with wisdom. So if your life feels slow right now, maybe that's not a sign of failure. Maybe it's an invitation. An invitation to trust your own clock. To walk instead of run. To breathe instead of chase. And to know that the life meant for you is unfolding, right on time. We often think success has a deadline. That if you haven't made it by 25, or 30, or 40, you've somehow missed your chance. But life doesn't follow a straight line. And some of the most extraordinary stories didn't begin until much, much later. Sometimes, the most inspiring journeys take the longest to start. And sometimes, the people who bloom last, bloom the most fully. Take Vera Wang. She didn't design her first wedding dress until she was 40. Before that, she was a figure skater, then a fashion editor. It wasn't until she felt a quiet frustration with what was missing in the bridal industry that she took the leap, at an age when many are already well established in their careers. And yet today, her name is synonymous with elegance, with beauty, with success. Or consider Colonel Sanders, the face behind Kentucky Fried Chicken. He founded KFC when he was 65. Before that, he had tried and failed at countless jobs: farmhand, railroad worker, insurance salesman, even running a gas station. But he believed in his recipe. And he kept knocking on doors until one finally opened. He didn't quit because of time. He kept going because of purpose. Then there's Laura Ingalls Wilder. She published her first Little House book at 65. Anna Mary Robertson Moses, better known as Grandma Moses, began painting in her 70s. Julia Child didn't become a household name until after 50. All of them remind us, the clock does not decide your worth. Your soul does. But maybe even more powerful than famous names are the quiet, ordinary people, like you, like me, who are choosing to begin again every day. The parent who goes back to school after their kids are grown. The artist who picks up a brush again after years of silence. The person who leaves a job that paid well but drained their spirit, and starts over with less money but more joy. These stories might not make headlines, but they are victories. Because they prove that growth doesn't end when we get older. In fact, sometimes, it's just beginning. And maybe that's what blooming really is, not a sudden explosion of success, but a slow, steady becoming. A deepening. A quiet unfolding. You don't have to be recognized by the world to be proud of your progress. You don't have to have followers or applause to know you've changed. Every time you choose to keep going, to start again, to move even when it's slow, you are blooming. So if you ever feel like it's too late, like your moment has passed, remember this: there are thousands of stories that didn't begin until long after the world said they should have ended. Yours can be one of them. Not because you're chasing a second chance, but because you're creating your real one. On your own time. In your own way. There comes a point when you have to ask yourself a different question. Not how much more can I do, but what if this is enough? Not because you've given up. Not because you're settling. But because for once, you're choosing peace over pressure. Because for once, you're deciding to stop measuring your life by someone else's standards, and instead, to honor your own. We live in a world that constantly asks us to do more, be more, achieve more. Rest feels like laziness. Slowness feels like weakness. Stillness feels like failure. But what if that's not true? What if choosing to pause is actually the bravest thing you can do? What if letting go of the race is not giving up, but coming home? You have survived so much. You've carried invisible weights through silent nights. You've woken up on days when hope felt far away, and you showed up anyway. You've doubted yourself, questioned your path, cried behind closed doors, and still, somehow, you've kept going. That is not nothing. That is not failure. That is resilience. That is strength. That is enough. Let it be enough that you are trying. Let it be enough that you are still here. Let it be enough that even when you're scared, you keep showing up for your life. The world won't always applaud that, but I promise, your soul does. Your quiet effort matters. Your healing matters. Your slower pace, your softer voice, your gentler way of being, it all matters. You don't need to rush to prove your worth. You don't need to compete to be valuable. Your value was never about speed. It was never about comparison. You are not a project that needs fixing. You are a person who is unfolding, becoming, and sometimes, just breathing through the day is more than enough. So tonight, or whenever you find this moment, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not too late. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are doing the quiet work of being human, and that is enough. You are enough, not because you did something amazing today, but because you are. Let that truth settle deep inside you. Let it wash away the noise. Let it soften the edges of your heart. And when the world tells you you need to do more, to be more, to catch up, let your answer be calm, quiet, and whole. No. I'm already enough. So here we are. At the end of this quiet moment together. And if there's one thing I hope you take with you, it's this: you're not late. Not for your life. Not for your purpose. Not for love, or peace, or healing. You are not behind, not in the ways that truly matter. You are exactly where you're meant to be, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Life unfolds in its own strange, beautiful rhythm. Some chapters take longer to begin. Some dreams need more time to ripen. Some healing requires more stillness before it can bloom. You may not see the full picture yet, but that doesn't mean you're lost. It just means you're still becoming. And becoming takes time. You don't need to rush to catch up. You don't need to scramble to prove anything. You've already come so far in ways no one can see. Your quiet growth, your invisible victories, your private courage, they all matter. They are not small. They are not late. They are yours. Maybe the most powerful thing you can do right now is to stop chasing time and start trusting it. Trust that what's meant for you won't pass you by. Trust that your path is not broken. Trust that this season, even if it's unclear or messy or slow, is part of something sacred. Something only you can live. You're right on time for your story. Right on time to rest. Right on time to begin again. So breathe. Be gentle with yourself. You don't have to be anywhere else tonight. You don't have to become anyone else. You're already enough. Already becoming. Already right, on time. And as this soft moment fades, may your heart remember this truth: the world may move fast, but you don't have to. Your life is not a race. It's a journey. And you, exactly as you are not behind. You're simply unfolding, in your own time. Sleep well. Or rest well. Or simply sit with this. And when you're ready, whenever you're ready, take the next step. Slowly. Kindly. And with no fear. You're not late, my friend. You're right on time.